aching. Find a place that's not. Find a place. Clear your mind. Close your eyes and breathe.
Welcome, everyone. So excited. You know, every first Sunday, Johnny Schaefer is here on the show as a co-host on the Big Daily Blend and on Big Blend Radio, obviously. And of course, today's show is also going to be on our Toast to the Arts show because we're excited. You know, the Big Daily Blend is all about holidays, observances, and also it is about, you know, something new that's happening. And what's new? Johnny has a new single coming out. We're going to talk about that. Also, August happens to be American Artist Appreciation Month, so Johnny is an American artist, so we're excited about that. And he has a special guest joining us, Stephan Oberhoff, and he's going to be joining us. He's a musician, singer, songwriter, composer, recording artist, producer, all of that good stuff, and he's worked with Johnny for quite a while, and we're going to have him on the show as well. No, but he's not an American artist, but he does produce a lot of American artists. So first up, Johnny, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's always fun to be with you on the Big Blend, and I'm excited to talk about all this great stuff and to have my great friend Stephan on the show today.
This is exciting. So you've got a new song called Find a Place, and that comes out August 8th. So I know we're airing this August 3rd. So this gives us all time to get on Spotify and Amazon and Apple and YouTube to just go and get connected and subscribe, right? So if we subscribe to all those online streaming services, is that the best way to get notified, Johnny?
Yes, we are going to launch the video with, like we always do, with a video launch party, and people can actually make a little hit the subscription bell and go to the video and click, you know, that they'd like to get notified. And then when we have the premiere party, everyone can watch it together. And once it's live, then they can watch it anytime they want. But definitely, if you haven't subscribed, my YouTube channel is @HearJohnny, just like my website's hearjohnny.com. And it's an all new website, by the way.
Yes, I saw that.
It. Yeah, it was. I figured, you know, we shot the video for Find a Place at the beach, and it was, you know, lovely, like, you know, blues and turquoises and everything. And I decided my website needed a refresh, so I've spent the last couple of days in there tuning everything up, and I'm excited, you know, just doing everything fresh for the new release. And I was really blessed, of course, just to have Stephan produce it. And then Gerald Albright, a 9-time Grammy-nominated saxophonist, agreed to play a solo on it. And so Stephan paints this beautiful instrumental world for the song. It's about meditation. In the verses, I sing about all the craziness that's going on in the world and in our, you know, in people's personal lives. You know, I speak about your house shaking and your heart breaking and your job and bills taking everything you've got. And then the chorus invites the listener to clear their mind and find a place, you know, of respite and healing. And then Stephan's music instrumental music sets that, and his production set that up so beautifully. And then Gerald Albright takes you to that place that, you know, that I sing about. And so
I love this.
Yeah. And so I'm really excited about it.
I think we need that. And August is Happiness Happens Month. And I think finding a place, you know, when you say the title is Find a Place, and in meditation, even if you have those few seconds, you know, whether it's just breathing or listening to music or eating a good piece of cake. I don't know why I just said that, but I want cake suddenly. Just having those moments, we've got to find joy. Actually, today's show, Shelley Wisdom comes on after you on Big Blend Radio, and we talk about happiness, and we talked about the Gratitude Club on Facebook that you founded. And we were talking about the importance of resiliency comes from, no matter how bad things are, that you've got to have that bit of gratitude for something, whether, hey, the sun is shining, that, maybe it's raining, but hey, the plants are getting watered without, taking the water table away. There's all kinds of ways to look at things. And yes, if things are bad, it doesn't mean we're putting our head in the sand. It just means if we don't balance out, you're going to burn out, and it won't be a happy
Absolutely.
burnout. It's not like a rust
Nope.
out like Neil Young likes to sing, right? It's, it's
Yeah.
not. So I love that you're doing this because I think we need it. And I want to bring Stephan on, and everyone, Stephan's website is stephanoberhoff.com. The links for everything we're talking about are in the episode notes, so you can connect with Johnny and Stephan. But welcome, Stephan. How are you?
I am great, and I'm honored to be meeting with both of you sonibly, not seeing each other, but hearing each other really well. And it's so wonderful to have my studio brother, Johnny, here with me, which is so wonderful. I've moved to Tennessee about 2.5 years ago, and but still the distance and the time between us has not, it feels like it's much, much shorter, as if we just worked together on something yesterday when I hear his voice. This is a wonderful thing. Wonderful to be here in the Big Blend.
Well,
And
welcome, welcome.
it's so great to hear your voice, Stephan. So
Yeah. I love these kind of reunions, and I love that we're representing different parts of the country as we record this. As it airs, we're in Columbia, Missouri. I know I thought we were near the Lake of the Ozarks, and I looked on a map today and went, no, that was just a sign saying this is the direction there. No, we're about a couple hours east of Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
And Stephan is in Nashville area. Johnny is in Pasadena. So we've got 3 states represented. And that means, everybody from the East, you need to now go do extra subscriptions to get Johnny's song. We need more states to get on board with this. I'm just kidding. But I love it when people are in different places, because it just shows that we can have unity no matter what. And I think that's the beauty of the internet. And obviously you both work together in person too, which is fantastic, right? So Johnny, how did you meet Stephan?
I met Stephan through Sue Holder, Melissa Manchester's manager, and Melissa. It had been what, 10 years that you were her music director, Stephan?
Close to 20.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So
Nice.
yeah, he worked with Melissa a lot, and I was always so impressed with his work. And the first song that I worked on with Stephan was a song called Joseph's Prayer from my Christmas album. And I went to him because I loved his lush string arrangements, and that was how I heard that song. And so I brought it into him, and he just got me and got the song right away. And it was a huge blessing and a beautiful experience. And many of my friends and followers tell me that's one of their favorite songs, that I've released. And Stephan's a big reason for that, because he just made this incredible, lush, beautiful orchestration for the song. And, I always say he lays down this beautiful pad that, anyone's going to sound great singing over. So, it was a great first experience. And then the second song I think was Finlandia Brasiliera, which I went in with this Christmas lyric that I wrote to Finlandia by Sibelius. And I said, Stephan, you can talk about your Brazilian music, but that's your passion, right?
Yes, it's one, I don't know when that bug bit me, but it must have been about 16 or 17, still living in Europe at the time. My friends have always told me, said, hey, did you realize that before you just kind of talked all about going to the United States to study at the Grove School back then in Van Nuys and to finally stay here ultimately, that you talked a lot about, I told my friends, and I barely remember this now, that I told them, saying, maybe I'll go to Brazil instead. So yes, there's that musical bug has bit me quite early on, but I have to say that it takes a Johnny Schaefer to show up with the idea of Sibelius with the Brazilian soundscape. I mean, that takes it. It really does. Johnny has such unconventional ideas, and he's not scared to pursue them, because most people might talk themselves out of certain things creatively. And he says, "What do you think about?" And I thought to myself, "What is he talking about?" And then we started working on it together. And I thought, "Oh no, this can absolutely be put in that context." So whatever he heard in his mind and in his heart is what we ended up doing.
See,
Well,
I
and
love
Stefan,
that about him too, because he's on Big Blend, because we don't like to be pigeonholed with anything, because everything is connected in some way. And I remember when he first came on the show was with Unflown. I mean, isn't that right, Johnny? It was the beginning.
Yeah.
And then we got into the Christmas music. I'm like, I have not heard, like, this ain't your typical Jingle Bells whatsoever. And and I remember going like that, I was like, this is some, wild, cool stuff, because it's all connected at the end of the day. And I think artists like Johnny take chances, and even if it doesn't pan out, he holds true to the integrity of his belief, and people do find it and do like it. It's like, he has not been pigeonholed, and I dearly love and support that with what you do, Johnny. And the fact that you find people like Stefan to work with, I think is beautiful too, because I don't think it's always easy to go against the grain of something, right, Johnny, to be able to get this produced. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's Find a Place was the last song Stefan and I worked together in his Creation Station West in Pasadena, which is like, what, a mile and a half from my house, which I loved. But he found a place where he could really spread his wings and work with a lot of amazing people on the other coast. And what I love about working with you, Stefan, is that you don't shut any of that down with me. It's really hard, actually, to find producers who, first of all, will work right in front of you. So many producers now want to lay down all the tracks and then have the singer come in later and just sing over them. And I have no interest in that whatsoever. I want to be there for every note when it's put, because the placement of every note is so, it's a series of choices, and one choice after another. And what I love about working with you, Stefan, is that you make space for that, and then you support ideas. I feel confident to bring up anything in the room, and then we can try it. And then a lot of times it doesn't work, but you don't know. At least for me, I have to hear it sometimes before I know it doesn't work. And there were some times definitely where you were, well, this isn't going to work, but okay, I'll go with you. We'll try it. And then, it didn't. But I've always really appreciated that about you, Stefan.
Oh, thanks, Johnny. And it's kind of interesting because being from, the European continent. I mean, I grew up with my mom always, when she was cleaning the house, she was playing classical music. My father was a classical church organist and a fantastic pianist, actually. But the music that I grew up with, when I got hold of American music, especially R&B and soul and funk and gospel and jazz, particularly jazz, I realized, I just had to be in the United States, but I still can bring with me these roots. And I told my mom, who's now 92 and a half and still living on her own with the help of some lovely neighbors and a caregiver, which is astounding. But I told her the other day, I said, I remember that always hearing these classical string lines from especially Bach and Beethoven and some Mozart, particularly Bach, though, which has the harmonic richness that was so ahead of his time. That being said, when Johnny came in, I had about 15 to 20 years of doing commercials behind me, and more commercial and pop-oriented melodies where you almost produce for the charts. You produce for certain of music, certain like laid in stone kind of style. Somebody would even say, I want this to sound like a track of like a Chicago track with horns, and then what the parameters are. But that was never as easy for me as going to try something new. And that's where Johnny came in. When Johnny and I met, and he from the get-go, and I thought to myself, this is going to be different than anything else I've done. And you must know that, I've done complete records, Melissa Manchester's 2004 album, When I Look Down That Road, that came out of my studio. That was co-produced with Kevin DeReamer and myself and Melissa back then. So Melissa knows exactly what I sound like. But when the things came to her ears that came out of my studio with Johnny's inspiration, she said, "You're doing something you're getting something out of Stephan that I haven't heard before." Mm-hmm. So I think that's a beautiful testament for somebody who's daring enough and willing to say no. I mean, it takes courage to do this. It takes, and Johnny has that. You have that heart and you have the courage to do it, and that has always been the overwhelming, overarching, how would you say, like the motto and the energy of what happens between us in the studio, so that's why I've always loved, said, good. It's, let's say, what do I have? Monday, I've got this person. Tuesday, got Johnny. Good. I can exit.
Yeah. But it's exciting. But this is integrity to art. That's true art, when someone does what is supposed to come out of them and what their creation is. And I think now in music, I know you're in Nashville now, and there's like, everyone's like a sellout in Nashville kind of thing and I don't believe that, because I know there's some there's just tons of amazing musicians out there, but it's at this point, I hear all sides because I do so many interviews, right? And I am also like I'm a pig. I'm a music pig. Like, in that if there's new music, I'm going to eat it, and I get excited when it's good. If it tastes bad to me, I'm like, it's not my thing, but listen to it and see, where it is, but it's exciting. And there's so much good music. And then there is still this heavy, overproduced commercialism going on. And I don't think it's ever going to change, but it takes musicians like Johnny to break the mold and to let others know, yes, you can do that. And it may just be a longer path. It may be harder, but at night you feel good when you go to bed knowing you're doing what is true and soulful. So can you speak on that, Stephan, from a little bit from the industry side of what I was saying? Because, sometimes everyone just kind of blanket washes like Nashville and, all of that. No, it's all just, the labels telling people what to do. And I really don't believe that. I think the independents are standing up, and the smaller labels too are standing up and doing what's right. That's personal opinion. Just, and who cares of mine?
I'm with you on that because I am sort of just entering the market. It's only been 2.5 years that I've been here, and I was connected through one of the. That's such a long story. I don't even know really how to delve into this properly. But I was connected through one of the singers whose band I joined, a wonderful black singer named Crystal Miller, who's so good that she doesn't know how good she is, if you know what I mean.
Oh, that's nice.
No, you don't want to do this gig for $150. You're worth $1,500, or you were $10,000 or something like that. Crystal was my longtime bandmate, or I was in her band for about close to 2 years, a year and a half at least, I want to say, who said, I have this client of mine who wants to produce her next record. And she's sort of country, some folk. And we come to find out later on that is called Americana. And Americana is the big umbrella for everything that falls out of this very narrow bandwidth of what they now call country. You must country now. You have a tremendous amount of country artists of all ethnic groups. I came into a True Food kitchen. They have I very quickly got fed up with the fried food, which there's a lot of fried here. But I stumbled into a True Food kitchen, which is a chain that you guys have in California as well. I know of one down in El Segundo that I used to love to go to. But anyways, I walked into that, and one of the people behind the bar was an Asian gentleman, and he was called, I think it was the Filipino Cowboy. And he had like these full-on country songs on Spotify that I listened to that were very well produced. And I thought to myself, that's impossible. I mean, how could this be? He was kind of going into that particular bracket, or this particular genre, where certain things fall right out of it. For example, if you will not believe this, if you're in Nashville and you have a lot of diminished chords, Johnny and I both love these diminished chords, the big harp that open up and then settle down in a beautiful big major 7 chord. But if you have something classical sounding, at first that asks a musical question and then gets released in that beautiful way, that you don't have that much in country. That falls out of country for the most part. And they have a terminology here for that you guys are going to love. They call it, you playing one of them out of town chords.
Oh, no way. That's funny.
Literally called out of town chords. So they call Americana. Funny. Yeah, the funniest thing is that they call Americana. Yeah, Americana is country for liberals. That's what that's.
Oh, yep. There you go. Yeah. And Ryan Bingham gets away doing that stuff too. Like he, as a musician, he gets away like with being Americana country, Texan. Well, he's actually New Mexico, and he gets away with that by, I don't know how, because he rides bulls, but he can be a liberal at the same time. It's crazy. And, be on Yellowstone, the TV show. So that didn't, hurt anything. But isn't that wild? I have to say, Stephan, that when back in my band days, which was many years ago, this was the beginning. And when we came to this country, because we lived in Africa for most of my life. No, not now. Now I'm older. But I had a band in San Diego, and ended up with this rhythm guitarist who could play rhythm guitar, was good, had no real musical training, and he wrote some decent songs. Some were hysterical, and some we really could collaborate just lyrically, and very simple but good songs, that we could sneak into the audiences while there was the free bird in between, right? And I remember him sitting down one night, and he goes, "There's no such thing as 3/4 time." And I looked at him, I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. No, that's what you're saying about that. That's one of those out of town chords. Here's a rhythm guitarist telling me. And he plays 3/4 time all the time. And he's like, there's no such thing as 3/4. What are you talking about? And I'm like, have you ever heard of a waltz? He's like, yeah, but that's not 3/4. So I don't know, Stephan, do you ever come on that? I think, but he was still good at what he did, but he just had no clue. No clue about that timing of 3/4. Isn't that wild as a rhythm guitarist?
That is kind of curious, particularly if you, do you guys both remember that Frank Sinatra song, Fly Me to the Moon?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in when was it now? 2016, I had the blessing of spending about a year and a half or two, actually, in the studios producing an album for Barbra Streisand's son, Jason Gould. And I got to, Quincy Jones picked up the artist, and I thought, okay, well, if he picks up the artist, then I'm a goner. He's going to put his guys in, but he didn't. He kept me on board. So I heard so many anecdotes and such an incredible mountaintop experience, which it truly was. But one of the anecdotes was that he said, Frank Sinatra said, Quincy was on the road with Frank Sinatra when he was about 19. A very young man, a very prolific arranger and musician. And Frank Sinatra said to him, you know what, I want to do Fly Me to the Moon again, next city that we are, God knows where they were going at that point. They were always on the road. He said, but I want to do it the way you do it in 4/4. And I thought to myself, oh my God. And he said, what was it originally? And he said, oh, it was a waltz. I mean, think about it. Fly me to the moon. There is your 3/4. So I can vouch for that 3/4 exists.
Of course it does. Well, Johnny turned out, well, anyway, there's a whole other story. It's a different Johnny. This Johnny here on the show is like exceptional as a human being. The other Johnny turned out to not be exceptional as a human being. But anyway, there's a prison story there, but that I won't get into that on today's show. Bands are fun. But yeah, I want to go back to this too, because in San Diego, living out there and doing music out there, I worked with a lot of old school musicians from Flying Burrito Brothers, Moby Grape, Canned Heat, and those were they're all passed on now, sadly. Really good friends of mine. But this area had this hidden music, and it was all coming out of Fallbrook area. And J.J. Cale lived out there, and he's just, to me, one of the most amazing. I don't know. I love his music so much. And Rita Coolidge, and I saw that you worked with Rita Coolidge, and I just have to ask about that experience, because I think she has one of the most amazing voices. She did wonderful work, and obviously, was married to Chris Christopherson, who also had an incredible, one of the most, there's no one else other than Chris Christopherson. It's his own voice. But I thought she did so much amazing work on the Native American music side, the indigenous music side, and then as this, when she sang like Delta Dawn, and I almost sometimes want to just remind people of her incredible talent, because it was just all in that area, but people didn't realize who was living in the avocado groves. Jason Mraz was one of them too. He's growing coffee now out there. It's crazy. Wow. But yeah, tell us about Rita Coolidge a bit.
That was very early on after I came to California, at first as a student at the Grove School of Music, and then I just stuck around. I thought, you know what, I can't just leave. I can't go back to Hamburg, Germany and keep doing commercials again. So shortly after that, I connected with the Perry sisters, which were the former background singers for Anita Baker, a of biological sisters, all of them amazing singers and composers. Absolutely unbelievable. And they were connected with Brenda Russell back then. And Brenda Russell became I think I joined her, we started producing together in 1993. And then I went on the road with her in 1994. And she was the one introducing me to Rita, because Rita and her are close friends. They know each other really well. And she said, my friend Rita needs a string arrangement for a concert. I believe it was in Canada. And if you write, and she knew that strings were one of the wheelhouses that I really, really love to live in. The lusher, the better. So I was asked to write a score for a song about her father. And it had, some of these native shakers in it as a rhythm, and but it was full on, almost like the way Jeremy Lubbock would do strings for David Foster, in the context of a pop. I don't know, you can't call it pop song. Rita's melodies are so ethereal; they really defy genres.
It's earthy. That's exactly it. It goes back to what Johnny does, right? Like when you hear her voice. Yes, there's the indigenous side, but at the same time, there's this earth and then ethereal and light at the same time. She's holding two candles, She's, and I got to meet her several times, in the prep for the session, and later on when I got the recording of the concert, we connected again, and it was just I can't describe the energy. It's just a wholesomely, I think, earth, the description that you just used for that word, earthiness, the groundedness and the calm, sincerity that came from that I felt from Rita was a beautiful thing. I thought, wow, this is a phenomenal person. It was the only musical encounter we had in all of these years. But you through the ins and outs of the music business, you cross paths several times in studios or in conversations, especially with Brenda.
But it was Brenda Russell introduced me to her, and I was honored to work with her. It was a beautiful moment, and I wish I still had that recording. I am just flattered that I don't have that recording of that concert anymore.
Oh, that's you did it though, and that's exciting. And I love how it connects back to Johnny. Now, you both have talked about string arrangements being lush. And if either one of you say it again, I'm going to hang up and go outside and roll in the grass, because that to me is lush. It does. It makes me excited. I mean, it feels, when you think about lushness, what lush is, now there's, happy hour wine time lush, but then there's this lushness where there's a vibrancy. It's also dense. Lush has a density and a light. So like what we're talking about Rita Coolidge, right? That earth mama, yet at the same time she has this, ethereal light. So the lushness, you've both used that word in regarding to strings. And I think strings are the hardest. They're the hardest because it can, especially if you're doing anything digitally, like strings can be, you've got to have that. And Johnny, you want to touch on that? Because as a singer, sometimes if the strings are wrong, that could be your worst enemy.
It can sound cheesy if it's not done right. Absolutely.
Yeah, don't play the banjo on a Hammond. Don't do it.
And Stephan spends a lot of time finding great, samples, and then he's got this amazing software where you can make the studio sound like Carnegie Hall or all these places around the world, these beautiful places, or like the studio where the Beatles recorded. I'm blanking out on the name of it, but Abbey Road. And I encourage anyone who isn't following Stephan, please do so. Follow his Facebook page. Go subscribe to his YouTube channel, website, anywhere else he tells you, he instructs you to go, because he takes you on a lot of little journeys, and you get to see all the amazing people he's working with, and so many fantastic songwriters, singers, instrumentalists, and from a lot of different genres. And not very many producers are able to pull that off. And he also has videos where he gets into the nuts and bolts, and he goes into how he gives you little kernels of wisdom about his string arranging, or how he'll do the fingering on a chord progression, or lots of little details for those who are musicians or instrumentalists or producers who would like to learn. Stephan has a lot of great information, and I love that you do all that, Stephan. It's really fun to open up my Facebook and see a video or a message from Stephan.
Thank you, Johnny. Yeah, there is indeed a YouTube channel that has close to 60 videos on it, and several of them are dedicated to the strings and what they entail. Because I used to be a product specialist for a company called Roland, the synthesizer manufacturer.
Oh, yeah. I used to sell them.
Right on. Me too. A company that was founded by a Japanese B3 lover named Ikutaro Kakehashi, a very well-traveled man that I was part of Roland for just about a year as a product specialist. Wow. But I've always loved the programming, and I think in a nutshell, the reason why it's so difficult to synthesize strings correctly, because in essence, what you're putting your hands on, when you put your hands on the keyboard and a string sound comes out, it is a recording of one thing that the strings are doing. And if you need, for example, the strings to just produce a legato note like la, right? But if now the next thing you need to do is something that goes da 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 da. You need to do something very fast and staccato. You can't use that sound anymore.
Right.
play it on the keyboard, it's going to come out like, so it doesn't have the right attack. So you need a different recording of the strings doing that exact same thing. So for every single musical expression, there needs to be a recording. And that's why usually when I produce strings, I have arrays of sounds like stacked like 5-6 different patches on top of each other that have different expressions, and they get addressed musical moment by musical moment. You think, okay, this one I can't do. I need a staccato, very fast little acting string sound that can do this fast, like a string line. We could like string glissando, for example. That's the tricky things. When you have one sound, it's a one-trick pony. And you have to have, for every musical expression, you have to have a different sound. And that is what makes that thing so complex.
So it's the accents. It's the actual accents. Because I used to teach organs and sell them. So Lowry, Esty, Wurlitzer, Hammond, Roland as the actual electric piano more than anything. And it was always like, I didn't understand. It's the banjo. I'm going back to that because they would have this banjo on there, and I'm like, don't, and nobody touch it, because then it would just keep going. I'm like, you could do one note if you just needed to use it as an accent, but don't make a chord of the banjo. Like, what are you doing, people? That's where I was going with that, because the sound, the strings, certain thing, like, I think exactly what Johnny was saying about having the Carnegie Hall sound. There's like these certain settings. You have to know which to use when. And that's like complex that's complex about knowing each action of an instrument and how it needs to play at that time, and then add in all that orchestration. Woo. Yeah.
If you think about how a string player, there are how much pressure they put on the string, how quickly they draw it across the string, what they're doing with the fingering, or if they're plucking the string, and there's so many different ways the instrument can resonate. Just like with a voice, and Stephan, had to study that, and I think he mentioned Bach, and I know we've had conversations, Stephan, where you talk about studying Bach. And you learn a lot from studying the masters, and there, Stephan and I both love lots of layers, and like Bach fugues, have all these different things going on at the same time, and that's really tricky to do. And another reason that I appreciate the work that Stephan's done on several of my songs is a lot of times I have counter melodies, or I have multiple things going on at the same time, and it can really get muddy and messy if it isn't done right. And Stephan has that finesse, and he's able to, to adjust the mixing. And, I've worked with producers who don't want to mix because it's a totally different ballgame. And Stephan is a one-stop shop. He's able to, he's such a master at his craft, and has spent so many hours of his time delving into this and learning how, listening and studying how things sound when you combine them with other things. And so in terms of the strings, he understands how each of the instruments work separately, I think, and also how the players get the sounds that they want. And so then he's able to translate that into his work, arranging them on the keyboard. Does that sound accurate, Stephan?
Yeah, that does. Thank you, Johnny, for I'm glad it's not a video call. Otherwise, I would have blushed several times. And I actually did. You guys couldn't tell because you couldn't see it. The thing, what's kind of funny, and you just articulated that really well, Johnny, is that you need a certain amount of. I'm going to use a word that you will find surprising. I want to use the word discipleship. You need a certain discipleship to follow what your passion is, because look, I'm in this country, I'm in the United States because the chords I heard coming out of so many American orchestrations, especially string orchestrations or productions, be that in R&B, soul, gospel, or specifically jazz in the Great American Songbook, that I thought to myself, there's just no way I will never learn this like wholeheartedly, like full on, no holds barred, if I stay where I was at the time, Hamburg, Germany. So that's why I ended up in LA. And I had a beautiful piano teacher named Terry Trotter who played piano for Frank Sinatra, Larry Carlton, and a whole bunch of others. A magnificent voicing architect and pianist. I remember sitting in shows where my coach was playing. Terry became my coach for about a year or two. And people, he would play a ballad, and people at the end of the ballad didn't dare to clap because they didn't disrupt the sound field as the sound was ebbing away from the piano. And the discipleship that I mean, the word disciple is from that, the root is discipulus, that means the one who follows. You follow your passion. If you, for example, like the sound of Rita Coolidge, or and the earthiness, then you're going to try to find out what part of that connects with a part of your soul, even maybe a part of your body, or both at the same time. And then you're going to just develop something out of it. Either you make it your own, like Miles Davis used to say. Hey, no, he said, you have to steal. You have to steal as much as you can from the greats. But at some point, you're going to have to play you. But I like the discipleship about this whole thing, because when I was trying to create these string lines with the earlier synthesizers and programs that I had, they would quickly sound, like Johnny said earlier, sound like toys, or they sound like a little like a joke or comical, because the string synthesizer wasn't bringing out the right sound. So I just kept searching and searching and searching. Getting new softwares. I don't know. I mean, I must have spent about probably during my life as a producer, probably in the six figures of libraries, hardware, software, synthesizers, until you find something where you think, okay, now this is an array of sound I can deliver heartbreakingly beautiful stuff with. But
that's the lushness, right? That's the lush.
Amen. That's special. I mean, if lushness is what you hear, I mean, that's the thing about America, is that it just had an irreverence to take these beautiful accomplishments of the contemporary French composers. You know, look at Ravel, for example, and put those things, merged them with jazz harmony. And the kind of harmony that it's jazz harmony that underlies the Great American Songbook. It's not pop harmony. It's not folk or whatever harmony, but it is jazz harmony that underlies it. And they merged it, just absolutely, irreverently merged these two things. And out came these luscious things that I heard, especially back then, the producer David Foster, who always tended to hire string orchestrators like Jeremy Lubbock out of Texas, just a marvel of an arranger. And then there's the great Johnny Mundell in LA, who I never had the pleasure to meet, but there's one video I have on my channel. So if people are interested just to look at that, there is one, I think probably the highest, no, let's call it the gold standard. Let's call it the gold standard arrangement for an American, grand American classic. And that is Here's to Life by Shirley Horn. And that's arranged by Johnny Mundell. And it struck me so deeply, it struck a chord in me so deeply that I thought I'm going to have to try to just emulate what he's playing, because there is no chart available. There is no score. The score, they've only reached the score up to bar 44 or something like that. So a good half of the song is missing. And when you listen to that orchestration, you can't help almost just to go on your knees. It is so beautiful. And I reenacted it from ears. I mean, just by listening, I think, wait a minute, that sounds like there's 3 flutes on top of the string line. Let me try this. And I tried it to follow it. And again, there's that word, the one who follows, that's a disciple. You're one who follows. If you follow your passion, like Johnny follows his ideas. He said, no, I heard that's a bossa nova, and I heard I hear the Finlandia in there. And he was just becoming a disciple to that musical inspiration. So I have a video that is probably by far my most successful video about retracing the steps, and it's called How to Make Great String Orchestrations, and it is, you can find it on my YouTube channel. If you just go look for Stephan Oberhoff, Stephan Oberhoff on YouTube, then you come to my channel and you'll find that video.
I know you seem to do a lot for musicians, songwriters. Like you have a membership club, like you have a club almost like on your site that it looks like you work with people that could connect and start growing from what you do. And like, Johnny, is that what you're a member? You're a club member, Club Stephan? Is that what it's called? I know the creative. I like the creative station. We have Vacation Station as a podcast.
Yeah,
I like the creative station. That's cool.
Creation Station. Yeah, it's my the studio is my happy place, and there's no better studio than Stephan's studio. And I've enjoyed seeing all these videos where you're getting out and doing some live stuff with people too, right, Stephan? In the Nashville area.
Yes, yeah. It's really interesting that Nashville has a small but mighty jazz community. And we recently, out of that jazz community, there's a strong relationship to the Brazilian music scene, because many jazz players like to bring in the occasional girl from Ipanema or blue bossa, these Brazilian standards. And there is also a strong little tight-knit community that loves Brazilian music. And we just recently had the very first meeting of the Nashville Samba Society. And I actually happened to be invited, and we're sitting there with 8 or 9 people in the room playing through very complex, beautiful Brazilian charts. I mean, it was, and all of us, when we left that meeting, we sat, when we hugged each other goodbye, everybody said, if I could play this music only, and only this music, that'd be enough.
This is so interesting about the Brazilian side of things, because I've also heard that a lot of blues musicians go to Brazil and Argentina to record. And I find that fascinating. I know that a lot of blues musicians and rock musicians will go to Europe to tour and perform, but it seems that the recordings, they're going over there. I know like Zakiya Hooker, she's the daughter of Johnny Hooker. Her and her husband, Roland, go over there, and he works with them. And he was a singer in the Natural Four from back in the day, like old school. Like, it's so good. He's so good. But they go there, and there's this jazz element that they're bringing into the blues, and it's amazing. It's so cool and exciting, and it's a different sound. Yet at the same time, like, they're taking some of John Lee Hooker's stuff and bringing it in there, and it has this whole other thing. And she's more of a jazz singer than a blues singer, So it's interesting about that with the jazz.
It's a massive world out there, and with the media available nowadays, where you can stream everything, and people getting less defensive about publishing rights and stuff like that. You can hear so much stuff. I mean, think about it. Every day on this planet, close to 100,000 songs are being released into the grand stream of things. If I can call it that, it's a huge world. Nobody ever. If you start listening age whatever, when he was age 6, and you listen to your 90 years old, you can only listen through about 0.003% of what gets put out on a regular basis. It is massive, So I'm not surprised to hear this. This was news to me, that I did not know that so many blues musicians found resonance going to Brazil or Argentina to record.
Yeah, and wasn't it kind of similar to the Buena Vista Social Club from Cuba with Ry Cooder, what he's done? Bringing in all these different, like the ethnicities. And when you talk about Americana, I think the person that really did that was Ry Cooder, in actually bringing Taj Mahal and Ry Cooder, bringing that together and using all the different sounds that make up this country of what we say America, right? The United States has so much, we're so multicultural. that's the exciting thing. So as a producer in Nashville, do you feel like you get to do that? I know Johnny's a huge part of like, hey, we're going to change this up a little bit, or a lot. But do you feel like that excitement of like, we're so multicultural, and look at your background, from Germany coming here, that it just in that we can have new sound.
Yeah, that is a good point. Since I'm still what they call definitely for Nashville, I'm a newbie, no doubt. But now I have my first full Americana album under my belt, which is just now coming out. It's an artist named Diane King, who's a beautiful Nashville writer who writes in that straight to the heart kind of Nashville way. Nashville is, in my opinion, about exquisite crafting, no frills, no, what's the word? Do you know that term artsy fartsy? That is not Nashville. That's the opposite of that paradigm. They will go straight to the heart and make the story real clear, but it'll be poetic and it'll be,
and gritty.
And sometimes, yes, especially, that's the thing when you come to the South. One thing I noticed about this town, above anything else, is the incredible musicians that come out here, that come to the studio. One of them is a guitar player that lives in Dixon, which is about 12 miles from where I live. His name is Bob Britt, and he's always on the Clinton blues tour, on the blues crew.
Yeah.
And he brought this old amplifier into my studio when he was hired to do work on that Americana album. And that, I swear to God, it felt like this amplifier was about 600 years old and somebody had poured a keg of beer in the back of it. So when he turned it on and the tubes warmed up, it's like, woo, that's a nice aroma in my vocal booth where I put the mic on the amp. And then Bob struck one chord and the sound came out of this amp. I thought to myself, heavenly butter. What is this? How do you do that? These are, Lisa, these are tone makers. I would call it in the area. I live in the area now of the Southern tone makers, and it's beginning to show in my productions. I was just asked to record a song called Storyteller for my client, Laura Purcell, who's the daughter of the studio legend Bill Purcell here in Nashville, who used to teach in his later years. We lost him in his early 90s, unfortunately. But his daughter's a very talented singer, dear friend of mine, and she just wrote a song about, somebody in her family who would need some help but doesn't want the help, like maybe a little drinking going on or whatever it is. But whatever it is, there is a very strong song coming out of that. It's called Storyteller, and that's the first time I got to use some of these new sounds. And I also am now a dobro guitar player.
Sweet.
Because that mournful texture and that, or bluesy, aggressive texture coming out of these instruments, I'm now thrilled to have them become part of the palette of colors I get to paint with.
That's awesome. I want to go to Johnny's song, Find a Place, because I love this whole point of making something positive. So when you take a song like Johnny's, Find a Place, and you're listening and going, okay, and how do you go from his vision to make it instrumentally go in that sound of what he's painting this picture? He's got the lyrics together, obviously the melody, right, Johnny? Like Johnny, you start saying how do you go to Stephan? What do you go? What do you say? Like, here's what I have, and then what do you want Stephan to do? Just for our listeners to hear about the actual process behind a song, because we live in, yes, definitely a world of singles, right? But that doesn't mean you just spit them out. Like, every song has an intense intention, especially with Johnny, with what he has done over, especially the last few years. It's amazing what you have done of making one song so important. And it's very important to me. And then put it in an album, and every song on that album to me is going to be very important, which is a beautiful thing. So Johnny, tell us about that part of, Find a Place. To me, hearing about it is beautiful, but tell everybody about, how do you go to Stephan? What are you walking in with, and what are expectations like?
Yeah, that's a great question. the sonic world that a song lives in is really important to me. And we've talked about before, a lot of times I get my ideas at 3:30 a.m. I wake up at around that time, and then I sneak out of the room so I don't wake Paco up. And then I come in here and I sing the songs into a recorder. And I've continued to work on my ability to flesh out my ideas, so that when I go into the studio, I can communicate it better. The first time I remember with Joseph's Prayer, I think Stephan and I it may have been 2 sessions where we were just working it out. Like I've been working a lot on my harmonic vocabulary. I've been playing piano hours every day and using jazz books and really trying to get all the different, harmonies into my brain and understand them. And so I'm also learning recording software so that I can make better demos so that it'll save time when I go in the studio. I have a better starting point. But Stephan has always met me wherever I am at the time. So particularly with my first song, it was a lot of work just getting on the same page about it. But I will say I just felt like he got it right away. But with Find a Place, if I remember, I went in with the melody and then chords, and Stephan always enhances my chord progressions. And I, just started singing it. And then I think we were pretty much if I remember right, and it's been a couple of years since we recorded it. And a couple of reasons for that. Okay. One, Gerald Albright's schedule of releases. I didn't want to interfere with that. And then I decided to save up my money so that I could use smoothjazz.com. So the folks at smoothjazz.com are going to heavily promote it to radio and on their site. And they have like 20 million followers on their site. So Gerald is very popular on there. So I thought it made a lot of sense. And I think, the track fits perfectly into that. So I guess I went in and another thing I appreciate about Stephan is he listens to the lyrics. And that I feel that really informs what you then do musically. Stephan, would you say that's fair?
Oh yeah, well that is essential. Sometimes you have a musical gesture either by the orchestration where you think, no, wait a minute, what the lyric is saying here is something intimate and something vulnerable. So I think what I either want to do there is just to make things smaller and more intimate, so we can draw the attention to the word only, so that it almost becomes inevitable to hear it. Hear that word and perceive it. So yes, the lyric is to me as important, and no comparison intended, but I know about Frank Sinatra that he would take the lyric and walk through corridors and in his room, or reading it to himself, reading it out loud, really studying it until it would kind of inhabit him. And then he'd go out and do either recording or a performance, when they were on tour. So that is sometimes when I have a singer in the studio that I hear sounding in any way perfunctory, or any ways, okay, we're getting a pretty note out, but what I don't hear the story. I need to hear the motivation of whatever bittersweet moment brought you to this point that you had to exclaim this or that lyric. And that sometimes I have literally the singers come and just drop everything, come out in the booth here and read this to me as if you were reading it to a poem to your sister that you have such a hard time with, and if or to your child when it can't sleep or something like that, and they have to get away from the music completely, go to what the lyric says, and when they then get emotional, I'm like, perfect. I've got you right where I think you should be. Go in there now, take that and bring that onto the microphone and record with that energy that you just touched on.
That's exactly how I could perform without reading lyrics. And if I mess up the lyrics, it's because I jumped out of focus of the story. Because when you're performing, I'm talking about like performing wise, you're telling a story when you're performing. And so that was how, as a singer, that was everything to me, was you're telling a story. And if you fumbled up on the lyrics, because you're telling a story, all you had to do was fill in the holes of the story. So you'd never really screwed up unless someone was like, hey, what, you said this lyric instead of that. And it didn't matter if you were continuing the story and you embodied every part of your being into that story. That's how it, to me, was everything. And I did a lot of blues stuff, and I would mess up lyrics, but I would tell the darn story, and I got away with it because that was it. And it was about the emotion of it and the honesty and the integrity, and I think that's the important thing too. And you've got to get it right, but there's this, you have to have that thing. It's not always about having the perfect pitch. It's not always, there is a sense of integrity. And that's, I think, Johnny, what you do so well is really standing by who you are and what you want. And I love that. And you get people involved. I think you bring community around your music as well. Don't you think?
Yeah,
I try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can 100% confirm that. It's kind of interesting that you're absolutely right. It's almost like it's like a mighty river that kind of carries ships on it or boats, and it where if a little boat zigzags from one side to the river to the other, it matters less. That the deeper groove of the story is what is more important than the precision of the delivery. Mm-hmm. I think that the first thing, you can rely on the power of that river to carry you to that place, even if you think you might not get all the words right. If it's okay with you guys, I would just like to reflect on one thing. What I think one of the drivers of behind the song "Find a Place" is what Johnny mentioned earlier. Is that sometimes when the outside circumstances get so nuts that you have to do a contrary thing than what you would like to do, like either just go fight or flight. Mm-hmm. There is an interesting book, about Zen meditation by Shunryu Suzuki, who said he had a student in his dojo that was deeply distraught by some political upheaval, where people in his country, I don't know if it was Bosnia or something like that, were being attacked, and he was packing up his stuff while they were meditating. And here comes that idea. And he was packing up his stuff and is causing a bit of a stir. And Suzuki looked at him and said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, my parents are being bombed in their house. I can't just sit here and do something. I do nothing. So I'm leaving. So I'm flying home tomorrow." And he said, and Suzuki said something very unexpected to him. He said, "Okay, I have something that you can do." And then this gentleman said, "Well, make it quick." And he said, "Okay, when you go home after this class, close the door real gently." And I'm going like, wait a minute now. What did he mean by that? It's a completely understandable and reasonable idea. If somebody gets in, if your parents are in trouble, you might just pack up and fly there to help out, right? He was bringing home, I think, another point, and maybe this is just a metaphor. But the story told me is that no, you come home to you take your peace with you, and you protect it. You don't slam the door thoughtlessly. You just be extremely mindful that you close your door behind yourself gently, so as to not lose the concentration, the focus on that peace that you carry within you. So if you are distraught, then find a place, and oftentimes that place walks with you. And that's, anyways, I'm not sure if I'm getting
here. No, it's beautiful. Yeah,
I like that.
For me,
it's really true.
For me, meditation is it's how I keep saying. I mean, if I don't take 5 minutes in the morning to center myself and meditate, it's a very different day. Yeah. Just like physically, if I don't go to the gym for a couple of days, I start feeling it in my body. And I think in my spiritually and in my soul and mental state, if I don't, center myself, even for a couple of days, I really feel it. And so I was taking a walk one day, and that's when this song came to me. And I just was thinking about how important it is to me to be able to do that. And I think a lot of people, I see it expressed on social media. People are kind of just, in circles, going around mad circles, trying to figure stuff out. And so I just thought, that offering this song might help somebody.
I think music is a healer, right? You can listen, listen to Ozzy Osbourne and feel better. You can, it doesn't, and I think where we talk about meditation, everyone's different. Like someone could listen to Ozzy Osbourne and be in a meditational state. They can listen to Johnny and be in a meditational state. It is that turn the noise off. And music, people have a hard time with meditation because of the monkey mindset, right? And everything. And music helps us actually zone in. And I don't know what, the meditation gurus and experts will say about this, but I know that when I work really insane hours, there's certain albums I'll put on and my body will change immediately. And it's like hypnotism. It knows, oh, this means it's work time, focus. And it's weird. There's just certain albums you could, and some of them could be, they say Baroque music is one that really works if you're studying and stuff. It doesn't work for me, but there's certain things, and it could be loud, it could be soft, it could be this and that, but there are certain ones. And I think when you find songs that heal you or make you actually get to calm, it's a special thing. Music is a healer, and it transcends time. It transcends what's going on in the world, and we cannot burn out to solve. We cannot fix the world burnout, and so we do need these respites. And a song can be just what you need every day to get through. Even just a normal busy day. There are people working 3 jobs, 4 jobs with kids and just trying to make it work. And then the world is politically going crazy and there's shootings and there's this, there's that. You have to take that moment or you will not get through and be resilient. And I think, with Johnny, you coming out with a song now with this, I know it's taken a couple years, but I think we need it now more than ever. And every time that there's something positive out there that is usable and functional as well, which music is, meditation is, it's even more important, and we need it more now than ever. So I'm very excited. So August 8th, everybody, is the day. And so you can go to hearjohnny.com, keep up with Stephan at stephanoberhoff.com. Links are in the episode notes. Just go back to you, Stephan. Anything in closing about the song, or you got to come back on? We have to have a Christmas special now,
I
We're
love
gonna have
that.
to do this.
I love that idea. No, I'm first of all, I'm so blessed to share this moment with you guys here and with the listenership at Big Blend. I'm like I said, I'm glad that this isn't a video call because I was blushing all the time. No, it's giving the gift of peace is an incredibly important thing in these times. And Johnny has accomplished that with that song. And I was just proud to be along for the ride. And it's been an absolutely beautiful thing. I mean, throughout these musical adventures that we had, like from Unflown, recording with a mask. My goodness, Johnny has to tell you that creates a specific sound. That was a pandemic product. It was unbelievable, so I'm just blessed to be along for the ride. And thank God, that we have Zoom nowadays. I will tell you that about 30% of my clientele is local. Maybe 25 to 30%. The rest is my folks coming in from California or resuming. it is absolutely possible to now have a studio operation where it's almost like you're on the other side of the glass, where I'm on this side of the glass making music with you, So I'm just blessed that we can continue these journeys together. So I'm thrilled I can't wait till it's released, and I'm just proud and thank you, Johnny. Like you've been so kind, and both of you have been so kind. I'm blessed to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for joining us, Johnny. Anything in closing? You should be blushing too. Yeah,
Yes,
everybody
totally.
should be
Yeah.
pink-faced.
I've been so lucky to work with amazing people like Stefan and Melissa, and have Gerald playing on my song, and I'm 63 years old. I don't know that I'm ever going to be a star or anything like that. So for me at this point, it's about being authentic and about making music that I love and that's me, and that comes from my heart and my soul, because that's the one unique thing that I can offer. And I'm so grateful to people like Stefan who are able to help me present that to the world. And I hope that people will check out Find a Place, because I do think it's a beautiful song and a really poignant message.
That's awesome. Well, Johnny, thank you as always. Always fun having you on the show on every first Sunday, but Johnny comes on other shows that we have all kinds of conversations, from pizza to genealogy and all kinds of things, suicide awareness. We've done a lot of different shows together, some very serious and some lighthearted. And I appreciate both. The serious are important, hard, all right? But
it's all important
to do. Yep. And then we need to have our humor, just like Find a Place. But I want to tell you both that I have a new word, blushes. It's blushing and luscious at the same time, and lush lyrics, lush string arrangements. So blushes is my word of the day. So enjoy, everybody. Thank you for joining us here on Big Blend Radio, and keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
It's an honor to be here.
When your heart is breaking, find a place that's nice.